This is episode 15 of the Fitness Plus Technology podcast with CEO of MYZONE, Dave Wright.
The struggles that club owners have is the intimidation of any form of technology. You know, there's one thing about having someone with a wearable device, but then there's another about being able to analyze that data. That's the real key and real opportunity. You know, the big thing now is I think doing nothing is no longer a solution for operators. They don't want to be another blockbuster or a Kodak by sitting down saying, look, we'll just sit back and watch.
Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. I am your host, Josh Trent, and this is your number one trusted resource for the accelerating world of fitness technology. Each week, we bring you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You'll gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse of what matters most for your fitness business in the age of exponential technologies. This podcast is brought to you by support from our outstanding sponsors. Brian O'Rourke and his family of companies, including Videre Ventures, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and many more. If you're looking for unmatched guidance, capital, insights, or a great speaker or facilitator, Brian and his partners are the go-to resource for your organization. To learn more, visit brianko'rourke.com. We'd also like to thank the Fitness Industry Technology Council, your nonprofit resource for reliable technology information, supported by forward-looking brands who are seeking to drive increased technology adoption in the fitness industry. Make a difference and join at fittechcouncil.org today. For episode 15, we're learning from Dave Wright, CEO of MYZONE, about our current state of wearables in 2017, what this means for club owners, operators, and trainers. With IRSA in Los Angeles fast approaching, this is your episode to learn about not only how both incidental and concerted activity trackers will be used in the clubs of the future, but also the nuances and advanced intricacies of how machine learning combined with remote coaching will change our industry forever. If you've been curious about what types of wearables and heart rate recovery systems are actually using gamification to drive club revenue and member engagement, this is your show. Dave is a vault of knowledge in our space with almost 30 years, starting in the international fitness community in 1990, that led him to launch MYZONE and be an industry leader and sought-after presenter. On today's show, we're talking with Dave about the roadblocks and the opportunities for smart clubs in the age of exponential technology that'll meet the demands of this fast-paced world. You're going to want to listen to this episode twice to take notes. Let's jump in to this inspiring and educational show with Dave Wright. Dave Wright is the CEO and owner of Creative Fitness Marketing, a global company with offices in the UK, Australia, and North America that has served the international fitness community since 1990, specifically helping people to be more physically active and stay active. He's also the CEO and creator of MYZONE, a cloud-based and wearable technology physical activity heart rate monitor and fitness tracker used to monitor and increase exercise adherence. He's a health club operator with 10 health clubs and a board director of the UK's Fitness Industry Association, an international presenter, and is featured regularly in international trade magazines. Dave Wright, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Josh.
I think today's conversation is going to be rich in this field of wearables, because today we're talking about not just how wearables look and how they function, but the current state of wearables as we move into 2017. Dave, you have a deep background in wearable technology and physical activity for large, small, and medium groups. But before we get into this topic today, Dave, share something fun with our audience that people don't know about you. There's a lot of information about you and MYZONE online, but give us something you don't normally talk about.
Oh, the interesting thing about that I would say is I think for the first 20 odd years of my life, I'd never been to a gym. I lived in the country in Australia, so all my activity was done outdoors with no exercise equipment. It was, run, push up, do all that type of thing for either football, training. So a lot of my initial history into the space of health and fitness was almost caveman style. In old, just move more and because I had that motivation myself.
The current state that we live in here of wearables, I was just gotten back from 2017 CES. There's a lot of buzz around wearables that you have on your wrist and your chest, and even the ring that tracks activity. But what do you see right now that's really making an impact in clubs? We're going to talk about MYZONE and making movement measurable, but what do you see right now? Here we are in January. People will be hearing this in February. What's making an impact in the landscape today? Is it the wearable on the wrist? Is it the chest strap? What's really moving the needle in clubs?
I think the big thing now is the accuracy of a device. So no matter what that is, and with clubs, I think there's a lot more education that's coming into the health and fitness sector. I think when the whole wearable space came into the health and fitness sector, because there was just so many moving parts, there was so many new devices, there's so many fantastic consumer marketing plans and adverts out there that it was overwhelming. Look, right here, right now, there's been so much awareness of wearables in the marketplace. The big thing now is all about the accuracy. So when the big marketing campaigns, the big consumer marketing campaigns have really started to bamboozle, and they've really begun to aggressively go after the fitness goer. So in a lot of the campaigns, it's not just about going outside and running outside. You'll see a lot of the advertising about within clubs. And a lot of it's misleading. There's no two ways about it. A lot of it's misleading, thinking, okay, you can get the data you need by when you go to a local gym using our wearable device. And I think that's been a little bit confusing for a lot of consumers, but also intimidating for the health and fitness sector. So they've not really known what the devices stand for, and more importantly, how to use it. But I think the big thing now is that the use of accurate data and being able to a greater awareness of being able to utilize that data, and I think that's where it's going, as well as is the meaningful insights, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the data that's provided, I think there's been more of an awareness for operators with credible data to be able to utilize that and leverage that technology to be able to help in the services that they provide. And that there itself, from an efficiency but also from a member tracking perspective, is why the space of wearables is really beginning to implode into the health and fitness sector.
You have a recreation degree and you were promoting physical activity then, and you have been for decades. How do you think your training and that whole world of getting people active in groups has helped you form MYZONE? And then tell us a little bit about MYZONE.
Part of our business for years has been, encouraging people to exercise and join gyms. So we've sort of like had a rich history of, over nearly a quarter of a century of just understanding what makes people tick, why do they go to a gym, why do they join, but more importantly is what turns them off. So, and that's from a sort of like a recreation and marketing background of understanding the consumer behaviour and that of motivation. And I think that's where it sort of like pivoted or morphed into, okay, there's one thing about getting people to exercise, but hey, what are the limitations? Why is it as an industry for the best part of 40 or 50 years, 50% of all the people that join clubs now in January, February actually leave by the November, December, or even stop exercising by April, May. And that there, it just fascinates me. It fascinates me as a business that, it costs 7 times more money to get a new member to your club than to keep an existing one. Yet so much of the membership campaigns and the health clubs around the world are just focusing on filling the top end of the bucket, rather than saying, okay, how can we plug the leak? How can we stop the flow of members out the back door? So that was the sort of like the focus and impetus of the drive of MYZONE, and in the whole thing of saying, look, if we can find something or build something that can track people, that can keep them accountable, and accountability is something that is pretty important. If something's not accountable, then it's not relevant. And if it's not relevant, it's not motivating. And so that's why, in regards to that accountability, we wanted to build something, a system and a wearable device that was going to work irrespective if you were doing a spinning class, or irrespective if you were out doing a Tough Mudder or a Spartan race, and you didn't have your phone with you, or irrespective if you were doing a CrossFit class or a Group X class. I think that was the real focus that we wanted to do, and that's why with MYZONE we use the tagline as effort rewarded. So it's actually rewarding the process. The whole point of MYZONE, it's my zone, not yours, not anyone else's, it's mine. And so what we do is we use a heart rate monitor that measures I mean, obviously your heartbeat, but we work it on a percentage of your maximum heart rate. So therefore, when you're dealing with percentages rather than the actual heartbeats, it's an even playing field. So 80% for you and 80% for me can be maybe completely different. You see, if you've got a group of people, say 30 people in one room, and then they went for a run around, for a 2-mile run at the same pace, same distance, same age, roughly, let's just say it's physiologically impossible for them to have the same experience. Yet that's what's happening in clubs every single day.
I think what was the biggest shock to me that you mentioned was that 50% of people that start in the beginning of the year lose that motivation. So one of the things I saw on your site is that you simplify fitness by giving the user the data that they need to measure their effort and reach their goals. Now, this is a chest strap that's worn either on fabric or directly on the skin, correct?
That's right. That's exactly right.
This monitoring system, it's heart rate, it's calories burned, but it's effort accuracy in real time. So this is kind of a deeper insight that people can use to tailor this activity. How is this being used right now in small groups? I mean, what does that look like from when the member walks in to them getting into the class?
From a small group perspective, when they put their MYZONE chest strap on, instantaneously their data is telemetry displayed to a screen, so that therefore, with their nickname, how many calories they're burning, their percentage of max, and then the simple colours that are regarding to their different effort zones. And so it displays instantaneously onto a screen. So therefore, when the actual instructor or the trainer is taking people through different exercises or group training, they can actually use that as a guide stick of the effort or the output from the participants in that class. So not only does it guide the coach to be able to see the effort levels, rather than looking at Mary or John and seeing how hard they're working, you've actually got absolute data there. You've got absolute real life data, and that there is important. Not only feedback from the instructor, but also from the customer as well. We've all been in that spinning class when the instructor said, right, give it another 3 turns, and we pretend to turn the dial without touching the dial. And that's because you might have hit your own, particular effort zones, and you want to sort of like say, yes, I am trying. And that's what this type of telemetry display enables the trainer and the small group training or any type of training to perform.
One of the things you have is effort points. These are MEPs used in the group setting. And there's a lot of different nuances around how people are using this in the club. They're color coded. It's on a large monitor. I think a lot of people are familiar with competition in the gyms and this gamification. But unpack for us how you're gamifying with these MEPs in the group setting.
It's not just in group setting. It's actually all the time whenever someone exercises. So what we've done is we've attributed MEPs, MYZONE effort points, associated with time in zone, and it's loosely correlated to calories, so to speak, but just loosely. We wanted to give an absolute figure there, which is if you work out between 50 and 60% of your maximum heart rate, you get 1 MYZONE effort point per minute spent in that zone. And if you're at 60 to 70% in the blue, you get 2 points per minute. 70 to 80%, which is in the green zone, you get 3 points per minute. And then if you work out at yellow or red, which is 80 or 90% or above, then you get 4 points per minute. So what that means in a simple term is that if you were to earn 60 points or 60 MEPs, now you could either do it at a nice, easy stroll on a recumbent bike at 50 to 60% and earn 1 point per minute, or you could put in a little bit more effort, maybe try a little bit harder, and you could just only do 20 minutes in the green zone, which is at 3 points per minute. So what we're actually effectively doing is we're creating a very simple metric of effort that's being rewarded. So it's sort of like a golf handicap on physical activity. As I said, it doesn't matter how fit or unfit you are. It just comes down to how much effort over time you put in when you exercise.
One of the things that you've partnered in is Midtown Athletic Clubs, and there's a write-up here in Club Solutions. We'll link that in the show notes today. But tell us about this partnership. This is something that they learned about, I think, at FIBO in 2011. They've been using with their members at Midtown Athletic Clubs. Show us kind of what they're doing to move the needle at their club using MYZONE.
The guys down there at Midtown are really sort of like forward-thinking in regards to their small group training. So they are utilising MYZONE as the measuring stick to be able to track their customers, to motivate their customers, to be able to see, okay, how many MEPs are each of their customers when they're training. And so rather than just swipes of membership cards, which doesn't really reflect the actual participation level that someone does. And, I think everyone is sort of like aware that most gym users aren't training in their actual gym 100% of the times that they train.
Sure.
And so up until then, the only way that you could actually track that data was by a swipe of a membership card. And what the guys of Midtown and many other operators have done is they've been able to utilise the MYZONE effort points that are accumulated to be able to have competitions, having various rewards when people hit certain status levels, but also in their group training for their classes, they can actually educate their customers to say, okay, this type of workout will earn you roughly 150 MEPs. This type of class is considered a yellow and a red effort level, which is 80 to 90%. So they can guide, they can use one universal figure and also a universal tool that can help guide their customers through their membership journey at the facility.
So they're combining this outside data using the MEPs with the inside club data. This is interesting because I think a lot of people are trying to do this in the small, medium, and even large group spaces. But individually, this is someone who could never even take a group class at all, but still be connected to some kind of platform in the gym based on their workouts outside the gym. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is actually having that Midtown at Home membership where someone could effectively not even be a member, a full-time member of Midtown, but they start with a MYZONE belt because the MYZONE is connected to Midtown, and so that they can actually start their exercise journey, paying a nominal fee per month. But then if they want to take that next step up to join in the club, they've already sort of like participating in the whole experience.
In December in San Diego, Club Connect and yourself have signed on for an educational partnership. This is something that I think is really powerful because ACE has done a survey on wearable technology for trainers, and there's a bit of a gray zone. Dave, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't know what they should be doing with wearable technology or with devices. Some trainers see it as a threat. Can you explain to us this educational partnership and what you're doing now to actually help trainers understand how they can leverage this tech?
Yeah, look, the tough thing with the instructors, there's so much information that they need to learn. There's so many new training modalities, and then you introduce tech on site. It can be quite intimidating. And what we've found, in the early days, we're sort of like saying, look, a lot of instructors at many of the big box clubs struggle to even say hello or goodbye to someone when they walk in and out of the club. So,
Sure.
So how are they going to get on with the technology side? So what we've done is we've partnered up on an actual educational. So we have various streams talking about, being able to be confident in dissecting the data, how to best utilize and communicate the training modalities that can be utilized with technology such as MYZONE, and so that it can actually help enhance the instructors' relationship with their customers. And so this type of education is paramount for us to excel and help the actual trainers to fully understand the opportunity that's there, so that they sort of like open their eyes and say, hi, it's not too bad. So, for example, rather than if I'm taking someone through a group training session, rather than saying, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to do, 50 star jumps and then wait 30 seconds and then do 50 burpees, what you can educate someone to do is say, well, look, okay, start your training. Once you've done your 50, don't go again until you've recovered to blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, the fitter person would recover quicker so that they're off, but the less fitter person, they might wait a little bit longer until they hit blue. And now what that's doing is actually helping for safe training, but it's also enabling the actual the trainers to utilize the technology and just various tips and ideas to enhance the training that they're providing, and that's, we're pretty excited about that, because education and wearables, as you rightly said, is sort of like, I know it's probably the glue that drives it together between the consumer, the device, and the trainer, being able to get the most out of the wearable.
There's a lot of different ways that you can coach using wearable technology, one-on-one, group settings. What do you think is missing right now from the virtual coaching piece when we look at leveraging wearables? I mean, how are coaches going to use wearables in settings and one-on-one in the future? What do you think that looks like?
Oh, look, the big thing right now is the coach being able to train their customers from anywhere in the world with accurate data to be able to connect with them, and I think that there is pretty important. And I think the actual training platforms that are being built that tie in with with API data and all this, I think that's where there are a few companies that are beginning to do it, but there's no real clear platform that could be white labeled over to a trainer to be able to pick up and say, okay, just use this, plug this in, and then you're away. For example, with MYZONE, what you can actually do is you might have someone that is cycling up the San Diego coast. Their actual personal trainer is on holiday in France. They could in real time send a message to you to say, hey, Josh, for the next 10 minutes, I want you to be in the green zone. And then as long as you've got connection to the internet, that's the type of data that's available. It's just a matter of about the trainers being able to step in and take control of being able to utilize that. The issue that they're going to have is that where the opportunity lies is the artificial intelligence and the machine learning that is fed into many of the systems out there possibly might overtake the instructor.
What do you think that would look like? I mean, how is that possible?
A perfect example is, I've set you a goal as a trainer to earn, for argument's sake, 200 MEPs in each week, or I wanted you to train for 2 hours in, the 70 to 80% zone. Now, an algorithm could be kicked in once that's set up to say, okay, if Josh does not achieve 250 MEPs in this first week, send him a push notification to say, hey, Josh, we agreed that you were going to you were actually going to achieve this. Come on, let's keep motivating you to stay on track. That could be done effectively by the back-end servers, rather than the instructor being able to sort of like have to go through, mine the data and go, oh, there you go, I forgot to tell you that you've not achieved that. That's the type of machine learning that is going to, that's just around the corner.
I could see how this would be powerful, because one of the people we've had on the podcast that'll come out here in 2017 is Matt Gamble. He was the CEO of Nudge Coach. They've built this kind of interface, but this machine learning piece, I think this is really exciting. There's a lot of fear, we had mentioned before, from trainers that these devices might replace them. But what I'm hearing from you, and especially with this context of the machine learning, is it can give the trainer more space and a little bit more power and insight to give their clients that coaching piece when they need it the most, and also set up some type of automatic messaging system where, just from a general baseline, if they're meeting their MEPs or if they're meeting their activity goals, you can combine these two, right, and make it really custom for the end user.
You're absolutely right. I think if that notification can go to the trainer or the facility, and so therefore they've been notified of it, so they don't have to go through and troll through the data, but they get this notification to say, hey, Josh has not achieved this month, and it's a push notification through to the trainer, then that's one of the things that they don't have to do. They can then utilize their knowledge and then just reach out and pounce on their customer. And that type of service is pretty powerful, I think, if it's used hand in glove.
Let's change just gears here for a moment because there's so many wearables out there. What are the wearables that you see in the industry that are really going to drive the engine, not from just a profitability standpoint, but from making people have a healthier life? I mean, what does this landscape look today? Are different types and functionalities?
There are two types of wearables. You've got the incidental activity trackers and then the concerted activity trackers. So the incidental activity trackers are things like your accelerometers. They're the wrist-worn devices that sort of like inadvertently measure how many steps that you do. Where they sort of like have a place, and I like to call them activity reminders more so than activity trackers, because they just, if you look at something and it reminds you to exercise, hey, guess what? It gets you somewhere.
Sure.
The one thing about those, I think they are forming a great feeder into our industry. So something that you can just smack on your wrist, or even utilizing your phone, which has got the built-in accelerometer to it. Something like that is always a great first step for someone in the pre-contemplation stage before that step of actually going into a health club. So I think they've got a place of those for the incidental trackers. I think. And it probably stops there. Regarding the what's used for the health and fitness sector, I think the big thing there is the likes of actual heart rate, where you've got credible data, and that credible data is used. And I say credible data such as it has to be sort of like a chest strap, because then you've got the credible real-time data. And I think nowadays with the influx of high-intensity interval training, which is really prevalent in the global industry, there's a lot of push around taking people through these high-intensity interval training sessions. The issue is when they don't have anything to monitor that real-time feedback, and I think that's where the heart rate monitors, the accurate, certainly the chest strap ones that can actually pick up on that, and you can start looking at heart rate recovery, which is the definition of fitness. The fitness, is not your max heart rate, it's your resting heart rate and how quickly you recover. And so these type of, so like the chest strap device such as MYZONE, it enables trainers to be able to have a true reflection on the training modality that's used and the data that's presented to the consumer.
Earlier in 2016, the Fitbit accuracy was questioned in a lawsuit because measuring from the radial pulse of the wrist, especially during high-intensity runs or any kind of heavy workouts, can be a bit of a challenge. There was also an issue with people that had tattoos. Do you think that there'll ever be a way to get the same accuracy from the chest strap at the radial pulse, or do you think that the chest strap is always going to be king?
Unfortunately, it's not an issue of technology, it's an issue of physiology. The way that the wrists work, it's quite accurate when you've got a predictable and repeatable movement of the wrist. I mean, obviously the way PPG works is it shines a light through the wrist. As blood pumps through the veins, the light shines through, and when the bloods get thinner and lighter, it says, oh, okay, this is what your pulse is, this is what your heart is doing, which is great, once again, if you're pretty much standing still. Or what you have is they have the motion artifact, which needs to be removed, which is where you build algorithms when people are running and they're doing a consistent, repeatable movement. You can see that the blood is slushing through the veins, and so therefore you can predict that artifact is the result of the running style. However, and that's great for that, and they are really accurate, for that type of signaling. However, in the health and fitness sector, 90 to 95% of all activity that's done is a non-repeatable, predictable movement of the wrist. That's where the issue lies. I think we'd all love that to be the case if it could work on the wrist. But the problem is you swing a kettlebell, you jump on some battle ropes, you do some burpees, and then you do some push-ups. You're not going to get, because your wrist is all over and the blood flooding through your wrist, so to speak, is unpredictable and repeatable. It's once again it's something where it's physiology rather than technology.
Earlier last year, Wearable published an article. It was called How Wearable Tech Will Become the Heartbeat of the Modern Gym. And Dave Long talked about how wearables are the cornerstone of everything they do. This was Orange Theory. And they're selling 50,000 wearables a month. I look at with these two things you said, concerted heart rate trackers and also the incidental activity and heart rate trackers. How do you think that people are using a chest strap versus a lifestyle piece like a Fitbit? Do you think there's room for both, or is somebody going to lean towards more one or the other?
There are a lot of people that have got both, but I think those that understand exercise, that actually do exercise, versus someone that just wants to measure the amount of steps that they take. I think if someone just wants to see in a corporate environment how many steps that they take, then they're not going to use something that's going to be really a chest strap that deals with that concerted activity. The real big thing is when you link a device with insurance. This is where I see the massive future of the industry and the industry of wearables, is when you start linking a wearable device that's linked with your health insurance provider, albeit either bringing down your premiums or giving you a free tea, coffee, or a cinema tickets. That there, it moves it from something that you would like to wear to something that you should, that you have to wear. And that's the, obviously they talk about that with any form of new product. Is it oxygen? Is it medicine? Or is it jewelry? And that's the big thing, is when you can try and move a wearable device, or for example, fitness is an example, to make sure that it's oxygen. You have to do it, and you have to wear it. And that's the factor that everyone's looking for.
The UI, UX, if you will, for the wearables and the consumers that use them. What does that look like? Are there opportunities you believe that club owners can really capitalize on? And then what are the struggles and roadblocks around that?
The struggles that club owners have is the intimidation of any form of technology. There's one thing about having someone with a wearable device, but then there's another about being able to analyze that data. That's the real key and real opportunity. The big thing now is I think doing nothing is no longer a solution for operators. They don't want to be another Blockbuster or a Kodak. By sitting down saying, look, we'll just sit back and watch, is sort of like no longer a solution. I think the industry's starting, obviously American College of Sports Medicine, top 20 trends for 2016, wearable devices were number one. And as you well know, for 2017, wearable devices were number one again for the second time in a row as the top trend. So I think operators, there's more awareness that's coming in. I think there's more need for the accurate devices that have been kicked up, but there's also greater interoperability as well, I think, with a lot of the devices out there, so that therefore club operators are being able to not only understand more, but they can actually make it easy for it to work with all their equipment that's out there.
I think you brought up some salient points today, connecting the data and making it meaningful. Speaking of number one, it being a trend for the industry, Wearable Technology Show last year, you were the overall wearable winner, MYZONE. Tell us about that, and then we'll go with your parting guidance for club operators and trainers.
The one thing that we had one of the journalists that sort of like turned around and said, look, wearables, what they noticed was that a lot of suppliers of wearables are trying to parachute into the industry. They're trying to parachute into the industry from outside the industry. So they're tech companies trying to parachute through. What they sort of like recognized with MYZONE and us is that we are from the industry. We're from, as operators, as club members, as exercisers and all this, we're solving the problem from the inside. Being exposed to it for 10 decades, it has a different plan of attack on it, and also a different respect for what will work and what won't work. And I think that was the one bit of feedback that we got winning the wearable tech. But we've also built MYZONE. It's a B2C product distributed by a B2B. So it's B2B for a C product, so to speak. So, our distribution network is through operators rather than the big fancy marketing campaigns that are going direct to the consumers and trying to bypass the clubs. where our view is, look, if we can get the clubs on board, if we can get the trainers on board, if we can educate them, they can be the best advocates because it enhances what they do. It solves the problem of exercise adherence. It solves the problem of digital intelligence for the operator, and it solves the problem of being able to be better connected, both digitally and from an engagement perspective, through something that's been designed for operators by operators.
And I think when we look at this complex data that can sometimes be construed as just too overwhelming or confusing with health tracking, what I'm getting from you is that MYZONE tracks a few key things, and it does it that's based on a point system. But this creates meaning. In 2017, as parting guidance, what should a club operator or a savvy trainer be looking at in regards to wearables and using that data with their clients in a meaningful way?
The important thing for them to do is they need to look at something that can work with as many of customers' existing platforms as possible, to make it so that, if someone likes a Garmin, it will talk to their Garmin. If they like the top-end Polar, it can work with Polar. If they want to use Strava, then what you've got to do is you've got to get something that's going to meet people where they are. But the important thing to do is I think for all operators out there, is that it's your data. This is really important, is that you've got to protect your data and you've got to make sure that, if you've got something in regards to the data that's collected, that, is that ring-fenced for you, so that you can actually, if someone moves to another facility, can you still stay connected with them? There's a lot of companies that are coming in to the industry trying to bamboozle various operators with I suppose, cheap products and the likes. I think, one thing I would say to many operators is to do your research, because if you're providing something that is not accurate, that falters all the time, so that is a pretty important thing. So, if you give a client a particular device that doesn't work, then hey, guess what? They're going to not look fondly on you and think, what else are you providing that's not working.
Dave, thanks so much for coming on the show and for making movement measurable. We really appreciate what you're doing in the industry and look forward to keeping in touch for 2017.
Good on you, Josh. Thanks very much for your time.
As the multitudes of technology platforms and wearable devices increase, smart club owners must partition dedicated time to research their best options. What's most important in the age of AI, machine learning, and the Internet of Things is whatever technology solution a club decides to offer to their members, it must work with devices both old and new to deliver a seamless experience that meets the member at their deepest needs. The intimidation factor of new technologies for group instructors and club owners of both small and big box clubs are being alleviated by forward-thinking companies like MYZONE and others in partnerships to proactively educate fitness pros on how wearable tech can enhance their relationships with clients. Dave believes that education around wearables is the glue that will hold everything together between the consumer, the device, and the trainer being able to get the most out of these new opportunities. A successful club of the future will implement foundational and progressive educational programs that both empower and inspire the fitness industry professionals as a whole to adopt new wearable technologies as we move forward. Thank you for spending some time with me on the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I want to thank our show sponsors, Brian O'Rourke and his family of companies, and the Fitness Industry Technology Council. You can learn more about becoming a valued partner with FitC at fittechcouncil.org and making an impact in your business with Brian's family of companies at brianko'rourke.com. Pick up a copy of Brian and his partner Robert Dyer's recent book, The 9 Partnership Principles, A Story of Life Lessons, which is available on Amazon now. For more clarity and insights about the technology that matters for your fitness business, be sure to access your free download for the 2017 Technology Trends Report right from your phone by simply tapping on the show artwork and clicking on the link in purple. To support this podcast, if you enjoyed the show, leave us a 5-star review by touching the link from your show artwork or at fittechcouncil.org/review. Next week, we have another phenomenal show with an expert guest to inspire you at the crossroads of fitness and technology. So until I see you again next week, be well, have an amazing day, and go out there to connect online and offline with the people you care about most.